All right, welcome to the Infrastructure and Public Buildings meeting. Notice the meeting was properly posted on July 19th. All three districts are here. First item for discussion is approval of minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we move down to item 5? So
Yeah,
the presiding judge can.
you bet. Let's go ahead and go to
Participate.
item number 5. Requested by District 1.
Yeah, this was something that Commissioner Bloomer brought up at BOCC, just wanting to make sure the item was approved. I just want to make sure that Keith and all of our staff is on the same page as far as what's going to be required on our end from an install piece, and then also on the ongoing content. So,
Yes, I've not talked with Ford Audio about their installation, but I have talked with the facility electricians and the facility communications people who've done 2 or 3 walkthroughs to determine where these things need to be located, how the communications cabling and electrical cabling would be fed, and that's a good thing. I was told, however, that Ford Audio is manufacturing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, manufacturing a particular mounting device for the screens in the locations in which they're to be installed. And it would be a good idea if we could see exactly what they intend to install and how it's installed and adhered. So that's really what I'm waiting on to make sure we don't have any problems with lath and plaster or marble with any of the proposed locations.
And that equipment is in their contract, is that correct? Or is that
I haven't seen the contract, but our electricians and communications people both told me that they're fabricating a custom piece of hardware to mount the screen. So not quite sure what that is, what it looks like, or how it adheres to the wall.
Judge?
Thank you all for
Welcome.
moving the matter up on the agenda. So, first of all, just kind of an overall perspective. This was a grant from the Oklahoma Bar Foundation and Oklahoma County Bar Foundation, which pays for it in total. The intended purpose here is to get all the trash and paper that we've seen for decades in the courthouse off the walls and be able to put those type of notices up electronically. And it's my understanding that parts of, or some of the mountings will have to be manufactured, but not all of them. It's just, where we have certain areas of concern with regard to preserving the integrity of the building and the history. And then, as far as, and Keith, I'm not for sure, but I do believe that various people from your office have seen the contract, is my understanding. Is that not right? Okay, and who was it from that we? Who all was it that saw it? Okay. Okay, so that's been circulated, and now we're at the point, I think, just of just getting that installed. And in terms of content, I think a part of that was discussed, and this really isn't intended to be any type of emergency management. It's intended to be, something like on the 3rd floor where Renee can say, Judge Andrew's docket is being heard by Judge Bonner at 1:30, something like that.
General information, correct?
yeah, what we've talked about in the past, and what I think there could be information that I'm not aware of that would make this a bad idea, but what we've talked about in the past was strategically placing some monitors over here in this building. We have a couple in the elevator lobbies, but they're not fully integrated yet. And what we talked about was if there is some type of emergency, whether it's weather related or not, having a push notification, if you will, that goes to all of those devices. That way everything's synced. Everybody gets that same information. I think that's probably something that our IT department, I spoke with Dane and he's happy to discuss it with anybody. We have some solutions here. Now, whether it'll work since that's going to be on state network versus county network, I don't know, and how we would work through all that, but I think there's probably some discussion that can be had. Nothing that would need to hold this process up, but just making sure that we're all kind of speaking the same thing and we're all trying to move forward in the same way. If we can get those integrated, that way both buildings are communicating in emergency type situations to populations in both buildings.
I think it
Or is
makes
it-
total sense. Yeah. And so, that I think that the key thing is just so that the day-to-day content would be controlled by, well, it'd be controlled by the presiding judge with
Sure.
at the direction of with directing the trial court ministry. But on emergency management, things like that, push notification, how are we, I think that makes total sense. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we can get that type of
I don't think
information.
there's a desire to control the everyday content. Just going back to our elevator lobbies, what we had talked about back then, and like I said earlier, it's never been fully implemented, but that in the elevator lobbies, the TV, the monitor that's there could have information related to the elected officials that are on that floor. And it would just be subject to making sure that it wasn't, political in nature, that kind of stuff, that we couldn't have here. But other than that, it's just, what they kind of want communicated about their offices. That's fine. But we wanted to make sure that there was a way that if emergency management needed to commandeer, for lack of a better term, in an emergency, we could send that information out. And so if we can, honestly, I think this coming up is great because it brings this discussion back to the forefront. So we talked about it for a while, and it's been probably 4 or 5 years ago now when we really were looking at that, and we need to kind of get back on top of that because communicating with the public in these buildings if something happens is important. And this coming up, I think, kind of brought this back to the front burner of being able to have these conversations. So I think it's important. I think we want to move forward. My concern was just making sure that we're all, trying to move forward in that direction. And then on the construction piece, my concern was just the provision in here about the customer being responsible for modifications, millwork, stonework, and that kind of stuff. And that can get extremely spendy, especially on that plaster and lab. My recollection is when we went through this before, it was pretty expensive and it was difficult for us to find people. So I just want to make sure that we were kind of efforting that up front to make sure that if we did think there were going to be any issues, that we were trying to line folks up early on, because I think it was really difficult to find people before that did that kind of work. And I don't want that hindering your process.
Renee, can you speak to that? Go ahead.
I don't have COVID. I just have been a little under the weather and I don't want to subject myself to catching anything because of my condition. In any event, when we did the walkthrough with Chris, Jody, and Tim Odom, all from, and Ford Audio, all of us did about a 2 or 3 hour walkthrough. There are no places that we're going to do this that should require any plaster and lath work. And so I think that's just a standard part of what Ford Audio puts in their contracts. The locations were all based on determining where we had the closest place we could get both electricity, and because we are going to put it on our secure OSC and network, access to those. And that's why a component piece of what we're paying is actually reimbursing maintenance for all the electrical work and for all the wiring. So the part of the proposal pays facilities management to do all that work. So we're not trying to get, and like I say, the way they've come up with how to do these, most of them is just an articulated arm like you would see at your house if you haven't. But the 3rd floor and the 5th floor are the two because of the crossovers that had a little different issues as to where they could be located. And so those are the ones that they're actually going to come down from the ceiling and fabricate something. So it will never be anything that will show through the plaster and lath.
So hopefully this is pretty much a turnkey. It was not intended to shift any type of expense to the county, and we wanted to make sure that we captured everything in terms of that grant request. And we will be right now. There's an administrative order in place that any type of piece of paper that's over there has to be approved by the trial court administrator for content. Nothing political, nothing like that. And so we simply will be modifying our administrative order so that content, so it's clear that whatever's on the monitors as well follows that intended purpose of the original administrative order with regard to notices, things like that are posted in the elevators or wherever else in the courthouse.
So no paper taped on walls anymore, all digital.
We're going to try to
content.
get rid of all of it. It's something that I've wanted to get rid of for as long as I've been judge. It just looks it looks like pieces of so it's like some trash blew up on the wall and stuck, and it's just been there. And this is great because we need to do it anyway. We're in the electronic and digital age, have been for a while, and this was a great thing because our Oklahoma Bar Foundation has grants in place to modernize courthouses throughout the state, and they've been doing this in other counties, and so we thought, well, why not here? And
I think it's a great idea. It's been a few years now. Whenever I noticed for the first time, I was at Cleveland County with a client at the courthouse, and they have now they're really kind of small monitors up there, so it was hard for my eyes to see it, but it had a little banner on there, and it was talking about different things that were going on, different events, timing, and that kind of stuff. That was, some judicial related, some county related and stuff. And it was really interesting as you're sitting there waiting, you could get all of that information and see it. So I'm happy to see us trying to move forward.
And we'll be able to control it from floor to floor too. So different notices for 8 versus 3 versus, because there's a lot of things where dockets are moved and things of this nature, and just, the public will find that hopefully very helpful. And things like keep the hallways quiet and can be a constant thing that pops in. So,
well, and the noise, that was the other thing that I was wanting to discuss. Sometimes when we do construction over there, it can get a little bit noisy, which can and has in the past impacted some of the courtrooms. Renee, are you going to be the liaison trying to manage Ford Audio as they are doing their install on that piece? Or is our facilities department going to be managing that? Do we know how that's going to work? I just don't want everybody thinking somebody else is the one that's responsible
No,
for this and then nothing gets done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Renee and I can work together on that part of that. And I'll reach out to Ford Audio this afternoon to try and fully understand what they intend to mount, where, and so on, to make sure that we don't do any damage.
Right, and if they need to do it nights and weekends, I mean, you guys can communicate that with them. I just didn't want Keith thinking you were doing it and you thinking Keith was doing it, and thus nobody did it. Okay.
Well, and I think that also I do know that there's a thorough walkthrough that was done. I wasn't a part of it, but that Chris Ponder and Renee and Ford Audio, so I think they've done a lot of that. But just like with regard to the install of the card readers and the cameras on the judge's doors, the judiciary is looking forward to this technology. We're not going to create a problem and say, we want to keep it quiet to make sure that and make this take longer than what it should. So if things need to happen during the day, I don't have a problem with that. And I don't think our judges will either, because we're all looking forward to getting that technology in place.
Cody, do you have a motion you want to make?
It would probably just be a proceed as discussed. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page and that we, some weren't thinking that, others were doing one thing and others another. And then, a little, piece of gravel in the boot can, over time, get very, very irritated and annoying and infected, right? So I just want to make sure that we had kind of some conversation up front to make sure that we were meeting the expectations, if there were any, and then you would know what our availability is. It's just more getting everybody in the same room and talking this out and making sure that we're moving forward the way you're intending to. So I'll make a motion that we proceed as discussed.
All right, is
Second.
there- All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Renee.
I think while the judge is here, we'll go ahead and proceed with item discussion for number 6, discussion of possible action regarding reviewing courtroom construction and proposed costs at the Juvenile Justice Center. Keith?
Yes, remember that the judiciary is expanding. They're in need of additional courtrooms, and we discussed that at length. We'd reached a point where we had recognized, approved, and selected an architectural firm to do just that out of JJC. We would fund this with bond proceeds using the PBA properties as collateral, and a $2 million budgetary figure was set at that time. GH2 has presented a fee and a contract for the initial sum to do that work. And I think it's prudent that we discuss today what the costs really are, what the outlook is. Things have happened. We have inflationary pressures. We have the possibility of a remodel of this scope and size triggering other necessities and needs driven by the fire marshal. And so to speak to that, I have Sarah here with GH2. Also, there is a handout which shows a proposed figure that is nearly 3 times the initial estimate. And I think it's prudent that we discuss this at length. And thank you, I want to say thank you to GH2 and Sarah for doing this work in the absence of a contract. Certainly, if we were to enter into a contract with GH2 now and seeing that the scope is much larger and broader than what we've anticipated, their fee schedule certainly would increase, and we'd be on the lookout for more money in order to fund this. I would
would
ask
say three-
Sarah to come up and speak a little to this.
I was gonna say, I'd say over 3 times, and I will make a motion to receive this document.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Thank you.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Hi, Sarah Andrews with GH2 Architects. So we've taken kind of a high-level look at the project and what's going to be required as part of the project. So on the first page of the handout, you can see the existing building, the areas that are not in scope, everything that's not hatched is within the project area. Existing, it's business occupancy, and so it's predominantly offices in that space. If we go to the next slide, this is our proposed floor plan that, again, taking an initial look at it, looking at the 3 different courtrooms. 2 of them would have juries. We also have the court clerk's office in green, and then additional waiting, jury assembly, and law library. So that is kind of the basic of the program of the space. So going to the next slide, we're looking at kind of more detailed look at the project scope of what would be required. Of course, demolition, new construction of partitions. The area of work is approximately 18,000 square feet. We haven't been out to measure yet, and so that's kind of my estimate based on the drawings that we have at hand. Of course, upgraded finishes. We need to address the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical building systems. On the east side of the building, there are windows located at ground level where a courtroom would go, and so those would need to be modified, either elevated higher so they're not at view or filled in. So again, we can look at options for that. We need to assess the floor structure because going from business to assembly is going to be a higher live load. So there's potentially reinforcement required. That's something we're not going to know until the structural engineer really goes in and analyzes that structure. And then we have technology, which includes the voice and data cabling, cameras, access control, duress buttons, and then AV system within the courtrooms themselves. So the items to be determined, again, the structural reinforcement, like we just talked about, fire suppression expansion. When you go from business to assembly, that could trigger it. It's a change in use, so it could potentially trigger fire suppression expansion. Right now, the building only has fire suppression in the stairwells.
Can I interrupt
Yeah,
real
go
quick?
ahead.
This may trigger an improvement or an upgrade in the fire suppression system for the entire building, not just the area to be remodeled. So that needs to be determined, I think.
Right. Right. Yes. So there's multiple ways that we can look at it, and it's something we're just going to have to talk with the fire marshal about. We can divide it into fire areas with fire barriers. We could look at potentially just sprinklering our area of work or our floor, or it may trigger the entire building since we're changing the use to assembly. That's just something, once we get further into the project, we're going to be able to analyze a little better. And then also outside air requirements. So from what we learned in touring the building, there is an existing outside air unit on the roof. It gets turned off because of the humidity that it creates. So that's something we'll need to look at that unit, see if it's operational. The assembly, the courtrooms are going to require outside air, and so it could potentially require a new unit depending on the lifespan of what's up there and if it can accommodate the new need. So again, that's something we'll have to take a look at. But going to the last page, this is our estimate with the knowledge we have. The basic scope at the top is considering the windows, the interior demolition and renovation, and then the building systems. And so that with our including contractors overhead and profit and a 10% contingency, because given that this is a renovation project, we need to consider there's probably some other unknowns in there. That is looking at just under 6 million, so 5,990,000. The add alternates that we've included below are the technology and data, all of those items. Fire suppression for the area of work only. And then if it is determined that we have to sprinkler the whole building, A3 would be added on to A2. A4 is structural reinforcement and an allowance for that. There's a few different ways we could go about that. Something we'll just have to look into what's the most appropriate. And then the last item, A5, is the new rooftop mechanical unit allowance for that. So if we were required to do all the base scope plus all of these add alternates, it would be a little over 7 million is what we're looking at. And that's our high level number. It will change once we get into the project. It may go down, it may go up. We don't know that. But based on the information we have, this is what we would estimate.
I don't think we've seen much go down recently.
Well,
Mr. Fire Marshal?
What's required?
Are you the fire marshal of that building, or similar to the jail, will that be the other fire marshal?
I guess he decides as we go which ones he wants to take back jurisdiction over. That's what I've seen recently.
I would suggest we would rely on our owner's rep for any fire marshaling that needs to be done there.
So he can marshal the fire marshal?
He can marshal up. I want to thank our chosen architects again, and we chose them for a reason. They're not under contract, nor have they been paid for any of this work, but I think they join us in hoping to find a clear understanding as what the real costs are and what we can expect, so that we're not caught by surprise and subject to any criticism moving forward that we've embarked on this without having a true cost as what it will be or what it should be. Everybody in the room needs to understand what the costs are today. And again, I can't thank you enough for the work that you've done here.
It was amazing. Keith came by, a week and a half ago and mentioned seeing about you guys looking at this house. Like, they're not going to do that. Come on.
Of course, we want to help.
And he's like, no, I think they will. And thank you.
Of course. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions or? No?
I'm sure there will be some that come up over time, but not for now.
I could
Judge?
add a little bit of color to it as well. So the reason for the 3 courtrooms is that over a year ago, we requested of the Chief Justice 4 judges based upon our population growth, docket growth, everything else like that. So the Chief Justice requested for the legislature for FY24 appropriate monies for 2 special judges. And as you know, those 2 special judges one is on the 3rd floor, we're still building out that courtroom there, and one is at 7.5, which really isn't a good place permanently. But last week, I met with the Chief Justice and urged him that for FY26, that he once again requests the legislature complete the funding for those 2 additional judges, that being 1 district and 1 special. The Chief Justice made a firm promise to me that once the new Chief Justice is elected, because his term will be ending, that he will have a meeting called between myself, him, the outgoing Chief Justice Kane, and the incoming Chief, and that he will urge the new Chief Justice to make that a request to the legislature for FY26 for yet 2 more judges. And I say all that because our dockets in Oklahoma County are the heaviest per judge by far across the entire state. We have 2 specific needs, and the reason why I say all this, that those courtrooms out there, those 3 courtrooms, what my intended purpose would be is to move probate, guardianship, and adoption docket out there. There's 3 judges that are assigned to that docket. It makes the most sense to just migrate those 3 out. When that happens, and if we were to get 2 more judges here, we will have the courtroom that's being built out on 3. We still may need to find space for yet another one, but by moving 3 judges out, we'll have the space here for the completion of that funding. I really hope that the legislature will appropriate those funds. It's very, very needed. But I thought I'd give you all that background and that color of it, because the hope is that we get those 3 courtrooms. That frees up some space over here in the courthouse for yet 2 more judges, where we would not have to build out any further space. And then, looking down the road with some additional courtrooms at the detention center, the new detention center, it gives us a little bit of that breathing space, where right now we just seem to be really under the gun in terms of space versus the need for judicial assets. I wanted to give you all that perspective, just so that I don't want anyone to be surprised when when we make a request for 2 more judges and everybody's still rather shaky based upon our space needs. And I appreciate as well the architectural firm for their work. I looked at the drawings now. It's just precisely what we were discussing with it. So I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? All right. Thank you, Judge.
Motion to receive report.
Second?
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, I'm going to go back up to number 2, recurring items. Item 2, no discussion and possible action regarding ARPA projects list. Stacy, anything here?
I'll defer to the owner's
Defer.
rep.
All right. Item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding TIF 2 and TIF 2A budget.
We have heard from Oklahoma City. I think the check for our reimbursement for the elevators in the courthouse might be here in early August.
Cool. That's good news. I'll make a motion to receive that report.
Second?
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding the capital improvements list to include but not limited scope to funding, schedule, and incidentals. Stacy?
Well, I made some updates to the schedules and some costs since your last meeting, but I haven't had anything, new projects on. We still intend to put the stairwell on 11 out to bid this calendar year. And I believe I have located the money for that project. Should hopefully the bids come in where we think they're going to. to be. We keep getting these surprises on numbers, but
That's one though that we have to do. I
yeah,
mean,
it's a life safety.
Yes. I hope it comes in at a really good price, but
Me too.
we have to get on that.
Plans are done. We're reviewing them right now. I'll be talking to Chantel about bid dates here next month.
You're talking about this calendar year, though. We still have quite a bit of time in this calendar year. We're not talking this thing getting out in November, December, are we? We're more in the August, September timeframe. I mean, if we have
As far as
plans.
bids go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, please expedite that as much as possible.
All right, any questions? Move to receive report.
Second.
Let's move in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Another thing I did want to mention, just like the BET has this watch list, I've created a kind of a watch list for this committee. We've never had it. It's just taking the projects that's on the capital list that are already on the runway and identifying which ones I think we're fine, we're fully funded, we're going to be able to complete them. And I've got a list of those that seem to be underfunded or in trouble, just like the conversation we just had. So it's kind of a new report I'll be giving you guys in the future. So it's kind of an infrastructure watch list, I guess, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
All right, jump down to item number 7, discussion and possible action regarding owner's rep report on ARPA project presented by William White. Okay, welcome.
First, I want to start with the elevators. Currently, I think we're about 98% done. Kone has the final revision, and hopefully we will get that back shortly. Of course, I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 items, but we're in the final stretches. As we say that, as we've discussed offline before, we need to make some decisions on JJC. Whether we take any deducts for the finishes or go ahead and do them fully funded. We have the generator alternates that we need to decide on, and then the final change order money to set aside. I think Stacy and I talked about it. It's around that $1 million number if we're going to do everything, additional funding. But I would hope we will have those final documents and the final numbers next time we meet so we can get that approved. But I would like to be able to give a direction on some of these items very soon.
Can you, when we meet next time and you have that full amount, can you let us know how much of that overage is associated with the finishes in those elevators at Juvenile and what some of the other options are as far as cost savings? The generator as well.
We have a spread. Yeah, we have a spreadsheet. We can provide that, but we just need the final direction.
Okay.
Thank you. Juvenile justice lobbies complete. Social distancing, that design final review. They're working on drawings, and our goal would be, I believe the schedule is sometime in late August, maybe to go out for quotations on the 5th floor. We're working together on the finishes to provide to Mr. Warren's office. So that is proceeding. Court clerk pavilion, currently we have a meeting on the 25th to finalize that. Sheriff's office, Midwest City is complete.
I mean, if I can't, so, and then is on the social distancing, is there a meeting a week from today? Is that correct on that with
Yes.
court clerk? So
Yes.
that's going to put to bed, you hope?
Well, we have the 5th floor, which is separate, which is finishes, and we'll talk about. On the 29th, we have a meeting for the 1st floor annex as it relates to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
To
Okay.
his, the impact of the phases. And we've modified the phases with the contractor and the architect, and we want to present that on the 29th.
Okay.
So so there's two issues there.
All right. Thank you.
Third floor purchasing's complete. First floor, clerk books. They're mobilizing today. I saw the superintendent downstairs, so that'll start on the south side, and we'll get going on that. So I think we have a path forward, and we're working on that. Again, annex security front entrance. We have the phasing and the scheduling complete, and we are going to review that with Mr. Warren. Be sure that he's comfortable with how the jurists are going to get in and out and through those phases. Juvenile justice drainage culverts continues. No change. Juvenile justice roof is complete. Camera security complete. I talked about the elevators. Behavioral health service facility. We're reviewing drawings and documents right now. The cost and estimating side of White has completed some estimates for HOK. So we're working through that. The existing jail HVAC, the submittal process is going, which is also a full review of the existing facility. So as you remember, we have a lot of unit prices that we accepted and were awarded. The contractor is going through now floor by floor and try to get a final scope that we can present and get going.
And you've got a guy pretty much full-time over
Yeah,
there,
and
right?
we're gonna have a gentleman that will be full-time during construction. Existing jail roof replacement is complete and the metal roof is complete. We are working on a warranty item on some of the sealant peeling up, and we're working with the manufacturer on that. But that's a warranty item, and we're no problem. The roofing contractor is being very responsive. The loading dock, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have the lift in, and we'll complete that by the end of August. I would make one request. We've now finished about 8 of these projects. I'd like to take them off the list unless you want me to continue on the list.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
And then, Colton, did you get the direction that you wanted from him on the report? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions?
Thank
All right.
you.
You bet.
Motion to receive report.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 8, Stacy, any discussion, possible action regarding the Citizens Oversight Board?
They meet tomorrow afternoon,
All right.
1:30. The agenda should probably come out today, right after this meeting.
All right. Thank you. Right. Is there any new business? All right. Any board comments at all?
No, thank you.
Any citizens to speak? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. It's moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Page one. Okay, thank you. Mhm.
Right, I'll call to order the meeting of the PBA Advisory Board. The meeting is properly posted on July 19th. All three districts are present. Item number one, discussion and possible action regarding the minutes of July 8th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number two, discussion and possible action of ARPA capital projects. Stacy, do you have anything here? All right. Item number three, discussion and possible action regarding reviewing courtroom construction, proposed cost of juvenile justice center. Keith?
We had identified $15 million of funding debt pledged against PBA properties for a first issuance to be split up between various projects, and I'm sorry I don't have those with us. There's an additional $15 million, I believe, that is pending that could be used to support some of the other projects that are underfunded, particularly the courtrooms out at JJC. We've not called upon any of those funds to date. And in doing so, when we do so, I'd like to make sure that we have a clear picture as to what the goal is and what the costs are, so that we're not scrambling around looking to finish jobs after we borrowed money. So if you would consider a realignment, perhaps of the first 15 million, or perhaps an additional sum to supplement a number of the projects that we've identified that I know are underfunded, I think that's the appropriate way to move forward.
Well, when you allude to an additional amount, part of that is going to be based upon what we're able to do with the first amount that we get, because if we can generate additional revenue through our choices of what we do with the first piece, it enhances our ability to get more revenue bonds on a second ask. So we do need to be intentional about not only what we do, but in what order we.
I think that's right,
prioritize
and
the
certainly
projects.
bondholders who are watching this and bond traders who are trying to sell the issuances are aware of these things too, and are watching exactly what we do with the funds that we've been given to us.
Any further discussion? All right, item number four, discussion possible action regarding update from the owner's representative on PBA ARPA projects.
Good morning again. Emergency ops. Friday, we received the 100% drawings. The CD drawings are complete. The contractor is doing his final reviews. I would think another couple weeks for final review and comments. Then we'll have revisions as required by the contractor to ensure that the plan set is 100% and within our budget requirements. So we're in pretty good shape there. I would anticipate September, late August and September, possibly bidding and starting the project. The elevators are as we discussed previously. Camera security systems complete. ICB remodel. The interior design is catching up with the exterior design, basically following the structural requirements. And we're just holding on, getting everything caught up and confirming the project costs through our contractor.
Any questions? All right, I'll move to receive report.
Second.
Moving and second, all those in favor say aye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bill.
Item number 5, discussion possible action regarding update on the Investors Capital Building exterior. Nothing, all right. Item number 6, update Investors Capital Building interior. No report. All right. Any new business? Anyone wishing to speak? Board comments? All right, seeing none, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.